빨간색이 온이라고 생각합니다.
Distinguished guests, welcome to Seoul Forum on Citizen Participation. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kim Kyung-mi, MC of the forum. This is a virtual forum. It is a shame that I cannot meet you in person as the forum is held virtually, but I hope it serves as an opportunity to transcend time zones and space and engage a larger number of audience from home and abroad. Please stay connected until the end of the forum, and let me assure you that the forum follows COVID-19 safety protocols. The two-day forum has invited local and global experts who will provide refreshing insights and inputs into PB to jointly create a vision for post-COVID PB. As you can see on the screen, many people have joined us virtually. Welcome to the forum, and thank you for joining us. Can you please wave? Thank you very much for your time. It's a shame that we cannot meet in person, but I will do my best to convey your emotions and feelings to everyone. The city of Seoul launched PB in 2012 to develop policies that engage its citizens. This forum is held in commemoration of the 10th anniversary of Seoul City's PB to look back on its achievements and discuss its future vision. The city of Seoul seeks to create a better future by engaging citizens deeper. Let's now watch a video to learn more about Seoul's objectives. What a great video to kickstart the forum. Seoul has achieved so much over the past 10 years, which was featured in the video, and you were able to see the city's slogan, which is more deeper and further. And the forum is held online to ensure the safety of the participants. Now, a number of VIPs have honored the event by sending us video messages to congratulate the forum. First, let us hear from Mayor Oh Se-hun of Seoul, who sent us the opening remark.
서울 시민 참여 포럼에 참가해 주신 여러분 반갑습니다. 서울시장 오세훈입니다. 먼저 코로나19 팬데믹과 시차로 인한 어려움에도 불구하고 기조연사로 참여해 주시는 이북 해반 영국 런던대 교수님께 감사드립니다. 아울러서 파리시와 마드리드시 시민 참여 예산 관계자 여러분과 세계 각국의 저명한 연구자분들, 그리고 UN 헤비타트와 UCLG 국제기구 관계자분들을 비롯한 외빈들, 그리고 국내 전문가 여러분들이 이번 포럼에 참가해 주셨습니다. 참여예산제에 대한 깊은 관심과 서울시에 대한 진심 어린 애정으로 참가해 주신 모든 분들께 감사와 환영의 인사를 드립니다. 서울시 참여예산제 시행 10주년을 맞아서 그간의 성과와 국내외 모범 사례를 공유하고 미래 발전 방향을 논의하는 특별한 자리가 마련돼서 무척 반갑고 기쁘게 생각합니다. 제가 서울시장으로 재직하던 2006년경에 천만 상상 오아시스라는 제도를 처음으로 시행을 했었는데요. 천만 시민이 상상하는 서울시를 만들기 위해서 시민의 아이디어를 받은 후에 공무원과 외부 전문가 회의를 거쳐서 구체적인 사업으로 실현해내는 그런 과정이었습니다. 이후에 서울시는 다양한 방식으로 시민 참여를 확대해 왔습니다. 이제 서울 시민이라면 누구나 사업을 제안할 수 있고 또 전문가, 공무원과 함께 사업을 논의할 수 있습니다. 이런 모든 과정은 온라인을 통해서 실시간으로 공개도 되고 또 시민 누구나 사업 선정에 참여하실 수도 있습니다. 앞으로도 서울시는 그동안 축적된 경험을 바탕으로 해서 시민이 원하는 곳에 예산이 사용되고 또 그 과정에서 시민의 참여를 보장하고 소통할 수 있도록 이른바 열린 행정을 더욱더 열심히 펼쳐 나가겠습니다. 아울러서 서울시 참여예산제가 새로운 미래, 시민의 삶을 긍정적으로 변화시키는 힘이 될 수 있도록 더욱 내실 있게 발전시켜 나가겠습니다. 같은 비전을 공유하는 분들이 한자리에 모인 만큼 서울 시민 참여 포럼이 시민이 꿈꾸는 살기 좋은 도시를 만들어가는 또 다른 출발점이 되기를 기대하겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you very much, Mayor Oh Se-hoon, for the opening remark. Next, VIPs have kindly sent us congratulatory remarks. Let us first hear from Chairman Kim In-ho of Seoul Metropolitan Council first.
Greetings to you all. I am Kim In-ho, Chairperson of Seoul Metropolitan City Council. Seoul has grown to become a more democratic city during the past 10 years. We have been striving to encompass more thoughts and to induce more participation from an area of citizens. Participatory budgeting was a valuable process that has brought a leap of democracy. Because we were capable of running a more democratic finance by reflecting live stories that each citizen sent to us in person to budgeting process. And through the power of collective intelligence, we were able to operate our finances in a wiser and more effective manner. Furthermore, participatory budgeting has become an occasion where our citizens could have a deeper understanding about city administration and participate in more actively. So we'll lead the participatory budgeting on end in a more fruitful way and establish a global leading model out of it. Welcoming all attendees once again to Seoul Forum and Citizen Participation, would like to encourage all of you to offer various opinions for a better future of participatory budgeting. We're certain that we can make Seoul where citizens become actors and Seoul where we can make it together. This will come true through participatory budgeting. Seoul Metropolitan City Council will always be with citizens and continue to support the participatory budgeting. We dream to reach a denser, complete democracy. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the remark, Chairman Kim. The chairman reaffirmed his commitment to maintain high-quality PB, which has been possible thanks to the support and encouragement of many people. Thank you very much for that. So we have been receiving much support for the forum, and we have received messages from overseas Executive Director of the UN Habitat, Maimuna Moh Sharif, has sent us a remark.
Honorable Se-hoon, Mayor of Seoul, Mr. In-ho Kim, Chairperson of the Seoul Metropolitan Council, Ms. Emilia Sais, Secretary General of the United Cities and Local Governments, Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, Honorable Mayors, friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to all of you. First of all, I would like to sincerely congratulate the Seoul Metropolitan Government for celebrating the 10th anniversary of Seoul's participatory budgeting. As we know, urbanization continues to grow all over the world, and most people live and work in urban areas today. Cities represent half of the world's population and 2/3 of the global economy. Achieving the goals of 2030 agenda is increasingly challenging, with new set of issues such as the COVID pandemic. Cities and municipalities are frontline actors in our urbanizing world and have important role to play in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. The transformative power of urbanization is recognized in SDGs, with the dedicated Goal 11 on making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. The inclusive engagement and participation of citizens is pivotal towards realizing the broad goals of sustainable development in such a way that no one is left behind. To ensure no one and no place is left behind, it requires new ideas to strengthen integrated and coordinated governmental actions which promote the ownership of the global agenda by empowered citizens. In this context, a meaningful participation of citizens is unquestionably linked to the concept of sustainable development. Importantly, community members should have a say in how public funds are spent to ensure greater transparency. Participatory budgeting as the focus of this forum is considered one of the most successful democratic innovations of the last 25 years. Participatory budgeting initiatives worldwide have evidence that it has a positive and powerful force for addressing development issues, especially those related to improving citizen awareness, inclusiveness, environment, urban planning, and basic services. UN Habitat launched the Participatory Habitat Initiative in 2019, providing technical support to local governments for improving governance through a participatory decision-making process of deciding public finances. I am sure this forum will generate wealth of knowledge on participatory budgeting as an effective city governance tool to accelerate the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals and the new urban agenda. And I wish that the forum will be a great success. Thank you. Gamsa Hamida.
Thank you, Executive Director, for your words of encouragement and your remark. The Executive Director talked about the importance of inclusion when it comes to citizen participation. Next, Secretary General of the United Cities and Local Governments, Emilia Sais, has also sent us
Greetings
a
from
congratulatory
United
remark.
Cities and Local Governments, the worldwide organization of cities, territories, and their associations. We are delighted to be here with you at the Seoul Forum on Citizen Participation, and we would like to congratulate you on behalf of the global family of local and regional governments for this initiative, for this pioneering forum, and for the very important work that the city of Seoul, as founding member of United Cities and Local Governments, is developing in the area of participation. If there is something that is very clear today, is that we cannot develop the kind of transformative policies that we need without the full engagement and participation of the communities. The communities need to be part of the decision-making process. And we are very happy to see how Seoul continues to develop the engagement of the communities, being the pioneering city, the first city over 10 million inhabitants to develop this kind of process. It is indeed very timely to do this. this, because democracy cannot exist if people do not have a very direct say in how the business that are directly related to their day-to-day existence are decided. We would like to ensure that you are being an example for many cities around the world, and that our World Organization will continue to engage with you, will ensure that your work is being made visible internationally, and that you can accompany and inspire others around the world. Congratulations, and keep up the good work.
Thank you very much for the remark. She talked about the importance of this forum, and it was a pleasure to hear from global leaders. Now let's kickstart the forum. First, allow me to introduce the keynote speaker. Do you know where PB was invented? It's Porto Alegre in Brazil. And this person is a senior advisor to this very city. The keynote speaker is Professor Emeritus of Development Planning at the UCL. And he will give a keynote speech on the topic of PB around the world, trends, challenges, and prospects. He has joined us virtually on Zoom. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Professor?
Could you hear me? Could you turn on the microphone, please?
Yep.
잘 들리시나요?
Can you hear me
네,
now?
지금 시차가 굉장히 꽤 있으심에도 불구하고 잘 들립니다.
Yep.
Hello? Yes, I can hear you.
Hello.
Good. Thank you very much for your participation, Professor.
Okay. So good morning to each citizen participation in this event. Congratulations to the city of Seoul, which is one of the key cities actually in the world today in participation. I'll take 20 minutes, 25 to make a trip around the world with you, identifying trends, challenges, and prospects in participatory budgeting. Next. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, to start with, 3 quick elements on how to differentiate upon multiple types of PBs. Next. First, what is or what was participatory budgeting? I'm using here the old definition from Porto Alegre, Brazil, a mechanism by which the population defined the destination of part or the totality of public resources. More importantly, it was to discuss and define the public budget and policies, and many PBs have limited themselves on budget. And PB combines direct democracy and representative democracy in a very different balance in each case. To understand PB today, after 30 years, you need to understand 3 very different logics which are actually appearing. One, the original one, was power to the people, radically democratized democracy. PB was a mean to transform society and to deepen democracy. This tendency today is very limited. It has lost this. What has been dominant and is dominant is to have it simply as a good governance, as the United Nations leader was saying, it's to improve the relation between citizen and local governments, but with limited power changes of that. And a third, which is marked by the new public management tendency very much in Anglo-Saxon countries, is to improve the efficiency and transparency of public management, a little bit like in corporate enterprises. Next. Now, and my last point to start with to differentiate is that you have PB which are place-based. You can choose any project in, say, a neighborhood, a district, a city. Others, you channel the money, for instance, PB for housing, this is existing sometimes, or for climate change, like in Vienna today. And a third type is PB where you earmark resources for the youth, the women, the elderly, and then you have mixed types of PB. I identified 8 points for some trends at local level. Well, the first one is that over the last 10 years, you have a continued global growth that is appearing. Huge variation between region and city and countries, but still you have new countries which are joining and new cities. For instance, this year you had a very significant step in Turkish cities. Moroccan cities have joined lately. So there is an upscaling in some countries, in Russia, Korea, in Indonesia, and many more. And you have more spread than depth. It expands, but doesn't mean that the experiences are of deepening democracy. So you can see with the images how it has grown through the years all over the place. We have now a universalization phase. This is what I call the fourth stage of PB. Next. The second trend is that despite their complexity, more and more capital cities are introducing PB. This is quite a phenomenon. Lisbon, Quito, Seoul, all 10 years old, Paris, even less, Madrid, Yaoundé, New York, Bogota, Helsinki, Reykjavik, Mexico, Metropolitan Lima, nearly the same size as yours, Seoul, Vienna, Istanbul recently, and again, very large city like yours, and more. What is interesting is that these cities are bringing important social and democratic innovations. This is new. Strong commitment from some mayors, and just as importantly, it has a strong impact at national level when a capital city is doing that. You have here a picture from Paris. And sometimes, but rarely though, significant resources are debated, for instance, in Seoul or Paris, but with new big challenges is how to implement such a high level of resources. Next. 3, PP are not limiting to municipal level, even if it's still the most frequent in number, and you have them at very different levels. Many cases, they are emerging like in St. Petersburg, in 1 or 2 districts within the city, or like in New Taipei. Sometimes they appear only in 1 municipality within a large case. This is the case of a very interesting Şişli district municipality within Istanbul as a whole. It appears in small villages, so having the image of municipal scale is not enough today. The fourth trend, a very interesting one over the last 10 years, is that what I call the overflow or spillover. Hundreds of experiences are beyond the government sphere. They can appear in low-income housing estates, in schools. In my pictures here in the University of Rosario in Argentina, where you have now the students who can decide on the budget from the university. And they are not the only one, there are many of them. Toronto housing community, you have hundreds of thousands of citizens who are deciding on the resources that they are resulting from the rent. And look at this next image. I'm here in the country from the UN Director Executive, who is in Penang in Malaysia. And you have here PB who was introduced in a rental public housing. And one of the project was to dignify and to repaint to start with. And it has a strong gender content. So this is new, the spillover. The fifth trend is that even see if basic services and small equipment at neighborhood level, proximity, are dominant, you have new types of projects emerging. For instance, this year in Lima, they introduced social project, not hardware, not investment, but the same appears in different countries. Which are the new sectors or areas that are considered more and more? Growing tendencies, income generating projects. This is quite important. It's not only to redistribute but generate wealth. Urban agriculture and food, and this is accelerated with COVID. Climate change adaptation and mitigation. I just finished a report on that, showing how cities and citizens are choosing, like here, having water reservoir to fight against fires in Portugal, is quite a new tendency. So PBs are evolving in terms of sectors. 6, many PBs have limited resources, but their gear is to transform people, not to transform the city through PB, but to transform people through PB. And then these people empowered will be the transforming element of cities. So PB in a way improves people's life. It's an end. And it means it empowers people to make them stronger, to get more capacity to transform their own city and the city they want. The 7th element is that after decades of prominence of thematic or place-based PBs, where you have some sectors, money for some sectors, housing, environment, and for some levels, like neighborhoods, for instance, mixed solution, you have now more consideration for specific actors, trying to have social inclusion at a higher level. This is happening, for instance, for the youth, for women, for refugees, for migrants, for LGBTI. And very interestingly, you have cases here, I'm in Valongo with a PB for the youth, for now more than 10 years, 10 years actually. The other one on the top is in Taiwan, in Taoyuan, where you had a mixed solution of PB for migrants, and the topic was on leisure activities. So you see, I'm in my red arrow. This is also a tendency. The last tendency is expansion of digital PB. And this has been accelerated by COVID-19 restriction. It's probably one of the strongest trends over the last 10 years. However, you have reaction to de-digitalize PB to avoid the digital gap. Because with this digitalization, you have some groups, I was mentioning refugees, elderly, they tend not to participate. So there is an effort to avoid 100% PB with digital tools or platforms. If you look at the more recent trends, what Giovanni Allegretti, who is going to speak in your conference, identified in Europe as a result of COVID, I can say I see the same trend at global level. Many are interrupted, and we do not know if they will come back again. It could be the end of part of PBs. The second element is that many became just platforms with the risk to last as a digital tool beyond the pandemics. And then, more interestingly, you have hybrid system, traditional PB, face-to-face assemblies, and other parts which are on devices, with a highly variable balance of online and offline. So what is unfortunate is that deliberation, discussing about projects, tend to disappear, and the digital divide between those who are digitalized and those who are not is deepened. Now, you asked me which are the current challenges and the future prospects? And I identified the following 4 out of 10, and I leave you the list of the 10. One of the huge challenge is the amount of resources that are debated. Are we speaking of PB with a very small participation and a big budget, or of participatory budgeting with a big participation and a small budget, or big and big? What you can see is that through these last 10 years, but it comes from the 30 years, is that the amount of resources which are debated are very limited. Actually, it varies from over 100, and some cities even $200 per inhabitant per year. You divide the amount of money by the number of people in the city, and then you obtain this figure. It varies from 200, but 100 today, to $1 or less than $1. So in these cases, I call them cosmetics PB, with very limited redistributive capacity. Many of them are truly below $5 per inhabitant per year. And my take is that $10 per inhabitant per year is a minimum if you want to be serious about PB. This being said, Seoul this year is at the forefront because you are close to $100 per inhabitant in 2021 with the both systems interesting that you have. So you are important. But my challenge here is how to increase resources and increase at the same time people's oversight, the capacity of people to control this money. And the other question that I'm asking is, should there be a minimum to be called PB? Or are we accepting this notion of PB cosmetics? The second challenge, I don't know in Korea, but worldwide, I can clearly say that the challenge of volatility and interruption of PB is crucial. Many countries actually are cemetery of PB experiences. I take here the case of Portugal, where you had 100 new cases, for instance, in 2017, but 50 were interrupted. So they do not last. And if they do not last, there is no memory of PB. So how to reduce volatility? One of my answers is, and this is the prospect, empowering citizens, getting democratic muscle to give continuity to good PB. Because actually, people and citizens are the sustainability of PB. And I would add some institutionalization only, some institutionalization, not over-institutionalized rules. It has to be evolving. As we lose many experiences, PB's experience should be registered and documented in order to increase our collective participatory democracy memory. They should be registered. There is very little done on the thousands of experiences in the world. We know very little about many of them. And probably it's an important challenge for Korean PBs. So it's my invitation to document much more what you do and share your rich experience in many languages, because we know very little about Korean PB. The third crucial challenge for me is the deepening of democracy. The challenge of unlocking democracy in a post-COVID perspective. And PB has a role to play here. And the big question is how to shift from a good governance approach, improving the relation between local governments and citizens, to a more radical one, the more original one I was mentioning at the beginning, in terms of democracy and inversion of priority, reaching a social justice and spatial justice. And my image here from Belo Horizonte, the big question is how PB can reduce the divide and help these favelas, these poor neighborhoods, to be included in the city? This is the big question here. And another element for deepening democracy that Paris, you will listen from a colleague from Paris, is the importance of PB as a school for voting. Remember that less than 30% in last French elections of the people voted. So there is a lack of confidence, a lack of interest. So voting as, learning to vote as a strong symbolic value, and not only online, it's a social act that needs to be there. And so this is quite important, this voting dimension. And the prospect is going much more beyond municipal PB. I was mentioning in school, they exist in enterprises, in association of professionals, and this is probably a way to go. The fourth challenge is the avoiding hyper-digitalization, avoiding the PB 100% like this. The prospect, hybrid system with assemblies, face-to-face meeting, and limited virtual dimensions. Here I'm in Mexico, in Michoacan, during last elections, and it's not possible to think that in these places it could be digital. Digital can bring elements, but it's not possible to have it as a center part in many communities that I know around the world. 20 minutes have last. What part, and then big challenge is what and which parts of the process should not be digitalized, what we should keep for that. And I would like you to reflect on that, and we can share our views on this element. And the way to think is what some cities have been doing. It's in the US, but it's in Europe as well. And in some African countries, like Cameroon, is the importance of going to the people and listening more to them, understanding what they are interested in, and giving them power. I finalize my presentation with the following questions to all of you as we are starting a 2 days reflection. Out of the past 4 challenges, and these which are listed here, which are the most relevant challenges for Korean PBs? And I finalize here. How include and benefit the most vulnerable, those left behind, all those who express their legitimate dissatisfaction on the street? Another challenge is how to ensure a rapid implementation of voted projects while keeping citizens engaged in the control, rapid implementation. Numerous innovation, number 7, at local level, but which do not circulate much from one country to another, to one city for another. How can knowledge and know-how be produced and shared beyond linguistic barriers? How can we exchange with you? How China can exchange with Korea and with Latin America? Challenge of COVID-19, how PBs can help to better address COVID effects and impact. Is it a new topic that should be clearly included as a priority in the topics discussed? And then last, it's challenge of independent citizen and control and oversight. Like you have a citizen network in Korea, which I was impressed when I discovered it, I mean, a couple of years ago, visiting your country, or universities in Seville. And they brought a lot of insights and understanding. Should local government fund this independent and citizens oversight? Well, in summary, let me share my admiration to what you have been achieving in 10 years. And I hope that in the next 10 years, we'll hear more about your success, and you will help us to go and deepen democracy and deepen PB. Well, thank you very much indeed. And I'm open to questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Eva Kevan, for your very insightful presentation. We really enjoyed it. 네, 감사합니다. 이브케바니 교수님의 기조 강연을
Thank
함께
you very much
해주셨습니다.
for your
참여자
keynote
전문가로서 이
lecture,
서울
Professor
참여 예산
Keban.
재밌는
As an
방향성을
expert
위한
of PB, you
정말
have
해안을 들을 수
suggested
있었던
a good
시간이었습니다. 우리가
example
10년 동안
of
이룩한 것은
future
무엇이고
direction
또
that we need to
놓치고 있는
follow,
것은
what we have
무엇인지
achieved during the
앞으로의
past 10
10년을
years and what we
생각해
have to achieve
보면서
for
정말
another
목표
coming
아주
10 years.
유익한
Well, it was
시간이었습니다.
such a
세계
good
참여
time
예산
for
동력을
all of
받으신
us to
소망까지도 함께
tease
볼 수
out
있었던 시간이었습니다.
trends and
자,
challenges
질의응답
of global
시간을
PB.
저희가
So we'd like to have a
마련을
short Q&A
했습니다. 사실
session.
저희가 사전에 홈페이지를 통해서
Well,
많은
actually, we have
분들께서
received many questions
질문을
through the
받아왔는데요.
website
시간
prior
관계상
to the
저희가
event,
모든
but
질문에
due to
답변드릴 수
time
없다는
limits,
거
so we're
양해를
not
해주시고요.
able to
많은 분들이 좀
receive and
공통적으로
address all the
궁금해하실 만한
questions.
내용을
So
뽑아서
we'd like to ask for your
교수님께
kind
직접
understanding,
여쭤보도록
and we
하겠습니다.
have selected a
교수님,
series
지금부터
of
질문을
questions
제가
to
드리도록 하겠습니다.
ask Professor.
Can you hear me? Well,
Yes.
So the translation service will be provided because the question will be Korean. Okay?
Sure.
네, 자 그럼 제가 한국어로 질문을 받았기 때문에
Let me now ask the
질문을 바로
question in
읽어드리도록 하겠습니다.
Korean.
참여 예산의 취지는
Well, I
기존의
believe
행정이
that the
일반적으로
purpose
일방적으로
of
주도해온 예산
PB
과정에 대해서
is to
모든 시민들의
guarantee
참여와
the
활동을 보장하는
participation
것이라
and
생각을
activities
합니다.
of all
하지만
citizens
이
in the
참여
budgeting
예산을
process
실시
that has
중인
long been
어느 도시나
unilaterally led
특히
by the
대도시일수록
administrative
참여
authority.
예산 제도 운영의
However,
결과가
cities that have
극히
adopted
일부
PB,
시민만의
especially in
목소리가
big
반영한
cities, cannot
이른바
avoid
제한적
criticism
대표성 논란으로부터
that PB
자유로울 수가
undermines
없는데요.
representative
이러한 논란으로부터
participation,
벗어나
that
참여
is, the
예산
process
취지와
only
본질을
hears the voice
최대한
of
살리는
some
방향으로
people.
제도를
What can we do
운영하고자
to improve
한다면
PB so that it
어떤 개선
stays
방안을
faithful to its
생각해 볼
purpose
수
and
있을까요?
capture its essence?
포용적인
What would you
어떤
like to
예산을 말씀하시는 것
propose
같습니다.
to have a more comprehensive PB?
네, 교수님, did you get that question?
Yep. I had the question from Professor Kim.
So first, the question for you. We already received one of our participants before the forum began. So this is the question that I got. So did you hear my question?
No, but I have the question that the Professor Kim just sent me.
Okay. So
Um,
there should
could
be
you
next
please-
question. The second question will be from the professor.
Okay.
Kim
So
Eui-young.
what's the first one?
So yeah, okay. So translation service is now being provided because question will be Korean.
Yeah.
Okay, ready? Then I'll read the question again.
Yeah.
Okay. 자, 첫 번째 질문 다시 한번 언급을 해드리겠습니다. 참여 예산의
I
취지는
believe
기존의
that the
행정이
purpose
일방적으로
of
주도해온 예산 과정에 대해서
participatory budgeting PB is to guarantee the participation and activities of all citizens in the budgeting process that has long been unilaterally led by the administrative authority. However, cities that have adopted PB, especially big cities, cannot avoid criticism that PB undermines representative participation, that is, the process only hears the voice of some people. What can we do to improve PB so that it stays faithful to its initial purpose and captures its essence? What would you like to propose to render PB more comprehensive and more faithful to a diverse voices of all citizens? How can we maximize the effect and the initial intention of PB?
I don't listen to the questions.
자, 그러면요. 교수님의 질문부터. Okay, so then Professor Kim Eui-young will give you question first, then later then I'll give you again. Okay? 자, 그러면은 지금 약간의 연결 문제가 좀 있는 것 같아서요. 통역의 문제가 좀 있는 것 같아서요.
I think we have
두
a
번째 질문부터 좀
network
드리도록 하겠습니다.
technical
두
glitch,
번째
so we would like to ask the second
질문부터
question first.
직접 이 자리에 나오셔서
So this is the second question from Professor Kim Eui-young. So would like to ask this question in person through Professor Kim Eui-young. He's now present at the studio. So please, Professor Kim. Well, I myself will also be moderating one of the sessions tomorrow of this Seoul Forum on Citizen Participation. So this subject matter that Professor Eve Kevan has presented will be discussed again tomorrow during my session. Well, actually, I sent two questions to Professor Keban. So the first one is like this. You have touched upon the global trend of participatory budget, PB, but in all corners of the world, if you look at diverse cities, there must be some good working PBs and bad working PBs. What's the differentiated factor or enabling conditions for the success of PB? So, Professor Keban, would you like to share some cases or enabling factors? If you think that the commitment of political leaders is important, or economic structural factors are enabling, or it could be capabilities of citizens and cultural factors. There could be a variety of enabling factors. So as you have observed different cases, global cases of PB in the world, what kind of success factors or enabling factors do you think are important? And this is the first question. Do you think it would be better to listen to the answer to the first question first?
I can understand the first one.
Okay. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. Well, a pleasure meeting you, even from a long distance. About the enabling conditions, I think, and the success, the conditions for success. I would say that one, identified short-term ones to consolidate PB and longer-term ones to have it lasting, which are different. The first is by far the political willingness. If there is no political willingness, it's very difficult to really have it because there are many difficulties. The second for me is the strength of civil society, and organized and non-organized. The strength is not only about the organized, because in a recent research, we discovered that unorganized people, those who do not participate, they need to be reinforced to believe in this. And this supposes, as you have been doing in Seoul, but could be much more done, is training, civic training of what is PB and its benefit. The third is good information for citizens. It's never enough. Keeping them well informed on key elements with accessible data. And some cities are doing that very successfully. The capacity for people to ask what they want, not only providing a pre-established information from central government or from organized society. They should be aligned where they can ask their questions all the time. The fourth is that people should be able to decide, not only on the budget, this is absolutely obvious, but on the PB rules. Let them more decide the type of PB they want. Where are the locations for the meetings? At what time? What is the budget going to be used for? And I repeat, citizens are the sustainability and the criteria for success as well. The fifth is probably a significant amount of money to be discussed because people take that much more seriously. And a sixth element is a good and permanent staff, well-trained with resources inside local government. This is not enough considered. Citizens need to know who is in charge of PB. They need personal communication. And this, in another research, was one of the key elements which was detected. We need to know who are the people inside, and they need to be well-trained, able to communicate. They need to be supported. On the longer term, there's one that I mentioned, which is a key for success, is the capacity of the city to implement the projects in time, no delays, and with people oversight. PB doesn't limit itself to decide on money, but to follow up on the citizens. The second is the communication and information about results and about progress of the PB projects when they are implemented. This need to be updated probably every month. And the third one, like Paris did in last mandate, they didn't say, okay, we are going to put 100 million euros per year, but we're going to have 500 millions over 5 years. And then it became something much more time linked, mandate linked, and you tend to take that much more seriously.
네, 두 번째.
Professor Kim, you had a second question, maybe?
Yes. 두 번째 질문은.
Yes. The second question is this. You talked about the three logics of PB: technocratic, governance, and deepening democracy. You talked about those three logics, that it's intertwined. And I agree with what you said. But of course, governance matters. But at the same time, radical and deepening democracy should be our objective and destination. So how are the two concepts different, and how can we overcome the problem-solving type governance approach to deepen democracy? So can you please elaborate on that?
Okay, good. Well, I'm very pleased with this question, Professor, because the hope for PB, I think, is to shift from a good governance approach to a more radicalized democracy. And PB can be a tool for that. So what would be the big difference? As I said, the good governance one solves problems, but doesn't change the essence of democracy. And at the same time, it gives little space for deliberation, to give people the voice. And let's remember that democracy is not about vote, it's about voice and vote. People should have a voice. Now, which would be the elements, to deepen these, democratize this political perspective and deepening democracy? One, people should decide on rules, they should decide on money, and they should have a strong oversight over the implementation of projects. B, there should be a transfer beyond decentralization, meaning that meetings, that activities need to go beyond what is politically established as decentralization. It's a motor, it's an engine for more decentralization, for getting closer to the citizens, and the citizens having a greater say on political affairs. Remember what I said, that PB was about not only budget, but about deciding on policies. And this part of the message has been forgotten over time. Then more voice and strong deliberation. There should be a time to exchange on project and to co-construct projects through these debates. Some cities are doing this co-construction, when you have an idea in one part of Seoul, another one in another part. A long time is for people to meet and to build their projects together. And through this building, they get more collective force, and they can go beyond to ask for more. And the last point for me, essential, is participatory budgeting is not only about voting for projects. Sometimes it's reduced to that, in governance at least. But it's also to vote for people, for delegates, for councillors, for those who are going to give you more voice. And this community pillar or branch is a fourth one in relation to legislative power, to executive power, and to judiciary power, which is the essence of, let's say, representative democracy. And how can we go beyond in deepening? There should be much more social justice, and to get the people, those who have never had a voice, able to have a voice. And criteria for PB should be there to channel more resources to the most vulnerable. You remember what I said about actors PB. For instance, in an aging society where the elderly are getting poor, much more resources for the poor to engage. And some countries are doing that very successfully. So increasing the social justice element through changing the rules, and also more spatial justice. Some cities like Cuenca in Ecuador are, according to the nature of poverty, of climate change exposure, etc., are putting much more resources to some areas in the cities than to others. And I think that this also deepens the capacity of democracy, having more participation, more resources, and inverting spatial, inverting social, inverting political priorities. Then, to be stronger and deepening, PB cannot be an isolated tool, like a small recipe. To my opinion, and very much many cities are doing that, some of them at least, are linking PB within a system of participation. It is much stronger democratically when it's linked, for instance, for the right of petition of citizens. A project is there, but to get it really through, they can have petition presented to government, like in Lisbon, or linked to participatory planning. So it's part of a system, and this makes it strong and democracy stronger. And it's good when PB, for this political perspective, is part of the right to participate and not something tolerated by a government. It needs to shift to a right status and to be part of the policy of a participation policy in the city, which gives more power to PB itself and deepen democracy. That would be my reflections, but I would like to get your views on that.
감사합니다.
Thank you very much. I look forward to meeting you again, and I hope that you can come to join my session tomorrow if it is possible for you.
Thank you. 네. 네, 감사합니다. Thank you very much, Professor, for the very insightful presentation and also your answers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for inviting me. Hope to see you face to face one day, and have a fantastic 2 days seminar and forum.
I hope to see you again. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
네, 감사합니다. 이북해만의 교수님의 기조 강연.
Thank you. It was a keynote lecture of Professor Keben, which was followed by a Q&A session with Professor Kim Eui-young in person on site. Well, actually, it seems that Professor Keben has forgotten to press the translation button. So we'd like to make an apology for the inconvenience, and we hope that technical glitches won't happen again for the remaining of the session. Well, we'd like to have a 5-minute short break before we move on to the next session. We have just rounded out a keynote lecture session, so in 5 minutes we will see you once again with session 1. Thank you.
네, 여러분 휴식 잘 취하고 오셨습니까?
Did you enjoy the break?
서울시민차별 포럼 이제
Welcome
세션
back.
1을 바로
We will
시작하도록
now move on to
하겠습니다.
session 1 of
세션 1은요.
the
서울시와
forum.
해외 참여 예산제 소개와
The first
비교라는
session, which is titled Overview and Comparison of PB, SMG, and Global Cases, invites global representatives from Paris and Madrid, as well as local scholars and experts, to share the progress and achievements of each city's PB and discuss future models. What is the origin of PB? And what are some of the success cases of PB globally? Let's now watch a video to find it out.
네, 바로 영상에서 확인하신 것처럼 서울을
As
포함해서 전
you
세계
saw
도시
from the
곳곳에서
video,
참여 예산제를 시행하고 있다는
cities
점
around the
알 수가
world
있었는데
have now
그 도시마다
adopted
스토리도
PBs
있고요.
and they have their
역사도
own
참
unique
다양한 것
stories and
같습니다.
history.
자, 이번 세션은요. 말씀드린 것처럼 서울뿐
Now we
아니라
will
해외 도시별
kickstart
참여 예산 관계자분들을
session
직접
1.
모셔서 참여
As
예산제를
I
소개하고
already
또 미래
mentioned, we
발전
have
전략을
invited some of
공유하는
the
세션이
city PB
되겠습니다.
representatives
그래서
to
이제
hear
한 분
about
한
their
분
PB
발표를
experience
들으시겠고요. 이후에
and
패널
future
토론이
plans.
이어지겠는데요.
And the
네, 첫
session, the
번째로
presentations,
서울시 참여
will be
예산
followed
10년의
by a
변화와
Q&A
발전이라는
and
주제로
panel discussion session.
서울시 참여
First,
예산제를
Director General
발표해
Lee
주실 서울시
Won-mok of the
이원목
Citizens
시민
Participation
협력
Bureau
국장님을
will share the case of Seoul.
Good afternoon and greetings. I am Director General of City Civil Cooperation of SMG E1MO. Commemorating the 10th anniversary of participatory budgeting of SMG, we are gathered together for the opening of Seoul Forum on Citizen Participation. Would like to welcome all of you and thank you for your participation. Professor Yves Keban, who has just delivered his keynote lecture, and Director Colimberto from Paris City, and Technical Advisor Jose Becerra from Madrid. Thank you very much for your participation. And Professor Sosun Chang from Konkuk University, and Professor An Sung-min from Ulsan University, and Director An Young-hoon from Hansei University, Public Policy Future Research Institute, and all other participants joining us through online. Would like to thank you for your interest and participation. My presentation will go through the current status and the progress of Seoul PB and its major characteristics and outcomes, and its limitations and the future directions. First section is about the progress and the current status of PB of SMG. It was in 1989 that the PB has started in Porto Alegre of Brazil and has expanded to all other cities in the world. And PB is directly decided by citizens for the allocation of local government's budgets, and it's a powerful tool. And Seoul City has opened a platform called a imagination of 10 million Seoul citizens, which is OSS, an online platform, and it was started in 2012 in earnest. And the PB of SMG is comprised of three different steps. First, the introduction stage from 2012 and 2016, and it was about making people well understood about the purpose and the intention of PB. And from 2017 to 2020, the expansion phase, we then formed an array of consultative committees so that we can expand the different types of proposals. And from 2021, that is the development phase. Not only the external growth, but also internal substantive growth is now considered by SMG. SMG PB is to ensure more participation of the citizens to develop more practical projects in terms of budget allocation. In 2012, the project was allocated with 50 billion Korean won, but which got increased to 70 billion won in 2017. And in addition to the existing projects and other deliberation projects that could be proposed by citizens directly was added. And in 2019, 5% of the total budget is allocated to participatory projects. And next, let me now introduce the number of proposed projects and the outcomes of projects. In 2012 to 2020, we have developed more than 5,000 participatory projects with 4,053 billion Korean won. And as for the deliberation budget, we have developed 156 projects and 1,111 billion Korean won was allocated. And in 2012, with a participation of 192 citizens, it amounted to 710,000 till 2020. Not only general projects, the scope of participation has been expanded with different scopes and themes of projects, including citizens and public officials. And around 600 people are participating in the public-private deliberation committee to decide on 13 different sectors. They can join in any sectors that they would like to be part of, and they can propose any ideas on that. And the citizens can also share maximum information and communication within them. And every December, we receive a propose a project from citizens, and then we provide trainings and educations with citizens, and going through on and offline together, we are open to citizens with different voting process for the proposed projects. So if you look at the characteristics of Seoul Metropolitan Government's participatory budgeting, we have an abbreviation of SEOUL. Well, the first characteristic is S, suggestion. Any Seoul citizen can make a suggestion for the project. Anybody who reside in Seoul, who work in Seoul, anybody who are engaged in Seoul, and that they can suggest any ideas. Even foreigners living in Seoul can propose, and there's no limitations in age. And if you look at the breakout of the citizens participated in Seoul's PB, you can see the equal attribution of gender and other criteria. So, and also, we try to secure the representativeness of citizens. And the second characteristics E, it represents e-democracy, electronic democracy. So to secure the maximum number of citizens participated in PB, we have actively adopted the e-democracy system. All suggestions and deliberations are uploaded openly to the public, from the voting to the decision, and every citizen can leave their comments on the website for the final decision. And PB can also be voted through smartphone or the website. M-voting secures 103,000 participation in 2015, and it amounted to 156,000 participants in 2019. So M-voting is getting more and more participants. And also the fourth characteristics is openness. So the whole process of PB is open on the website, and also to reflect as much as possible the opinions of citizens. The budget allocation process is widely open to the public, and also um, it became mandatory for public officials to provide citizens' opinions on a specific proposed budget. So a new administrative culture is thus established. And next is about the usefulness. During the past 10 years, 5,149 projects were completed. So due to time constraints, I cannot go through each and every one, but we have been expanding the facilities for the citizens. As you see on your left side, we have expanded the pedestrian path for the citizens. It was before zero point 0.5 to 1.2 meters in width, but through the deliberation of participatory budgeting, the width of the pedestrian path has been expanded to 3 meters and 5.5 maximum. That's the satisfactory level of the young women and the elderly is quite high. And also on your right side, you can see a public library which is out of used and discarded buses. And this was highly appreciated by citizens. And we have the second and the third edition of public bus library. And the last characteristics of learning capacity. PG is a mechanism where public and private collaboration exists. We teach and learn to each other and from each other. And on per region and per people, we are running a visiting school, visiting budget school. So during the past 10 years, around 10,000 people were graduated from this budgeting school. And also we provide the consulting services with the citizens so that they can propose their own ideas in an organized way and to make it into a concrete project. Once we run a specific policy for 10 years, we say that it's time to evaluate the outcome of the past 10 years so that we can make a leap forward to the future. So let me summarize the three major outcomes of PG of SMG. First, we have reinforced the power of citizens through the direct participation into budgeting, and we have institutionalized the participation of citizens, and that's the significance of the first outcome. And the second outcome is that we have strengthened the bilateral communication between citizens and the city government. Before, we have had um, vague we didn't have any confidence or reliability from the citizens on the transparency of the policy, but it has been resolved through PG. And the third one is the paradigm shift through open administration. So we are now open to work with citizens, and paradigm has been shifted. However, on the contrary, we still have many rooms to improve. For example, the complicated budgeting process make the participation of citizens more difficult, and it also increases the burden of administrative chores. And diverse pilot projects that have been under operation for a limited time, and new procedures were newly added for the participation of citizens that made participation of citizens even worse. And that is why we have too much administrative power injected into the procedure. And the second one is about enhancing the quality of projects. We have planned around 450 billion Korean won for 5,100 projects during the past 10 years, but we are now reflecting if we have concentrated on too much if we have concentrated too much efforts on specific areas. And the last one is to strike the balance between righteousness and also efficacy of the budget allocation. So we need to explore new areas and themes that were not propelled before. And we also have to increase the efficacy of budget allocation. And we are now seeing the redundancy or overlapping projects, and that generated serious competition between sectors and themes. So SMG, against these criticisms, have developed three future directions to complement the drawbacks of the current institution. First, the practical growth of the institution. It is true that we have been growing externally for the past 10 years, but we will now more be centered around the original purpose of PB, which is the distribution of resources to and for citizens. And the second direction is to reduce administrative costs and to expand the participation and engagement of citizens. We had to go through different procedures depending on districts and municipalities, and that made the engagement of citizens more difficult. So complicated types and procedures should be simplified so that we can increase the efficacy of the operation of PB. And lastly, collaborative governance should be implemented between municipalities and the civil societies. We have 25 districts and other civil societies as well. Without the cooperation with these people, we cannot guarantee the leadership and also the success of PG. So we will focus on enhancing the collaborative governance. So the ownership of Seoul City belongs to citizens who would like to gather all different opinions from other cities so that we can develop a brighter future of PG of Seoul City. Thank you very much for your attention.
네.
Thank you very much, Director General, for sharing Seoul's PB case. So you elaborated on what Seoul does, SEOUL, and you gave meaning to each letter from Seoul. And it was a great opportunity to learn about the achievements of Seoul, but at the same time learn about the challenges and prospects for Seoul's PB. Citizens propose ideas, they brainstorm, and they can select the projects that they want to implement. So that itself is a great achievement. Now, let us learn more from the global cases. First, let's travel to Paris. The PB in Paris is the largest ever implemented in the world. In fact, Paris dedicates 5% of the city's total investment budget in the PB program every year. So now, without further ado, let us invite Head of PB Department from the City of Paris, Colin Berthaud, who will share the case of Paris. Hello?
Hello.
Yes.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a great honor to share the Parisian experience with specialists of participatory budgeting. I am Colin Berthaud and I work for the City Hall of Paris. Since 2014, the City of Paris has implemented the participatory budgeting, and it's very important to us to share our experience and listen to the experience of other cities and other countries. Next. Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you, sorry. Anne Hidalgo was first elected in 2014, and at this time, PB wasn't very experimented in France. PB was on one of Anne Hidalgo's campaign promises, and she brought participatory budgeting into reality. Paris was one of the first cities launching a PB in France. During the last 7 years, you can see that we observed a growing interest in the PB process in France. We now have 138 PB in France, and several municipalities are taking the steps necessary to adopt this model after the municipal elections in 2020. Next. In Paris, PB is one of the various means of participation and engagements. Since 2014, new institutions of participation have been established in order to connect to citizens, to give citizens the means to participate, and to empower people. Next. The idea of PB was letting citizens participate in political decision-making. PB's impacts are numerous: restore trust, increase civic engagement, help institutions operate in a more open and modern way, and better inform citizens on how their town's budget and institution works. Next. You can see a few key numbers of participatory budgeting in Paris. A lot of projects submitted, a lot of voters, and a lot of millions euros used for PB. Next. Various PBs processed have emerged over the years. Next. In Paris, there are 17 districts. Each district has a mayor and a council. So we have 18 PB, 1 PB per district for local projects and 1 PB for the entire city. Next. Since 2016, we also developed a PB for schools, for mid-school and for young people. Next. Another specificity of Paris PB is the focus on making the process inclusive. Since 2016, we have focused on making our PB more inclusive and more redistributive. 30% of the PB go to the working class neighborhood, and we work with local non-profit organizations in order to foster residents of working class neighborhoods to build collective projects. Next. And it works. You can see that on the maps that the low-income neighborhoods submit more projects than the high-income neighborhood. Next. Now, I'd like to present a few winning projects with our city to implement new things. Next. The first one is about a community-based air quality monitoring. The idea came from a collective of citizens living in the 20th district of Paris, but then got experiment all around Paris. The idea is quite simple, giving small, lower-cost air sensors to citizens to enable community groups to monitor local air quality conditions during 18 months. The aim was raising awareness of air pollution problems and potentially supporting decision-making. Next. The second one is the creation of a green fence alongside Paris Ring Road based on the Miyawaki method. You can see a video.
Dans le 2016, on s'est interrogé s'il y avait des moyens pour récupérer la biodiversité dans la ville, une ville très belle comme Paris. Et on a découvert la méthode Miyawaki. On a postulé au budget participatif du 2016 et on a reçu 14 000 votes à peu près. Suite à la victoire du budget, on a fondé Boom Forest et on a créé cette petite forêt à la porte de Montreuil.
Alors le budget participatif nous a permis déjà de montrer que les Parisiens étaient intéressés par un projet de cette nature-là. Ensuite, ça a permis d'avoir des relations facilitées avec la mairie de Paris et qui a mis en place toute une série de dispositifs, à la fois au niveau des compétences et au niveau même de la logistique qu'ils ont pu mettre en place pour nous accompagner. Donc ça nous a vraiment permis de concrétiser le projet et de lui donner vie. Le budget participatif nous a vraiment permis de lever les fonds pour ce projet pilote. Ça nous a permis de nous procurer la terre pour l'aménagement du site, de sécuriser le lieu et d'avoir tout l'aspect logistique pour réaliser la plantation avec une quarantaine de volontaires.
Cette initiative a la possibilité de créer une barrière verte qui fait du bien à tous les riverains, aux magasins qui sont à côté.
Le budget participatif, il est intéressant pour deux raisons. Déjà parce qu'on peut valider les projets qui nous intéressent, mais aussi parce qu'on peut en proposer à partir de pas grand-chose. Et nous, quand on s'est lancé au départ, c'était vraiment une idée très prospective. C'est vraiment quelque chose d'unique et dont il faut s'emparer.
Thank you. Next. The last project is a project of implementing a Fab Lab in a library. The library already got a 3D printer and several sewing machines that anybody can use, as you can see in the picture. Next. Next. After 7 years of PB, we have learned many things. Very quickly, I want to share a few lessons from implementing a PB. The first is that such democratic disposal is impossible to conduct without a strong political support and commitment. The mayor of Paris considers the citizens' participation as one of the main pillars of her action. There are so many obstacles to overcome that you need to lead various battles, and so you need strong political commitment. The second is about internal culture and organization. Implementing a PB will force to review the organization of your administration. It needs a lot of resources if you want to do it seriously. A permanent PB team of 7 people conducts the day-to-day activities, but a lot of people contribute to the whole process. There are around 300 civil servants who are involved in the feasibility study stage, for instance, and all these people need to work together. Civil servants will also have to develop new skills and be able to lead public meetings, review their process, and include residents. Next. The third one is that a PB needs to rhyme with transparency. All is about trust. You have to show everything, even when it doesn't make people happy. You have to answer to everybody, to give information, and everybody can check all the information about a project on our website. You can see it on the slide. Next. The fourth one is that you need also a strong IT system. Our front office is quite simple, but the back office is very important if you don't want to lose projects. Next. Finally, and it's also a specificity of the Parisian PIB, I'd like to highlight the importance of offline participation. Next. Parisians can vote in one of the 200 ballot boxes available throughout the city. And as much as possible, we place the boxes in places where people pass and live, market squares, popular events, sport events. We have to make sure that PB is not only for insiders who already have plenty of opportunities to be heard, but for everyone. Next. And you can see that it works because whereas the online vote is stagnating, ballot boxes vote has increased and now represent more than 70% of the votes in Paris. Next. To conclude, I'd like to speak about our challenges for the next few years. Next. The first challenge is how to seek quality and inclusion in the PB system. This year, more than 2,000 projects have been submitted. We are a big city, and it's very important for us to associate people for every steps of the process, and it's not very easy. So it's a big challenge, maybe, to achieve for the next few years. Next. Another challenge is experimenting a new voting method, majority judgment. You can see on the right of the slide our new ballot papers. Now, voters will have to grade as many projects as they wish, quantifying how much they like it, from I love it to I'm not convinced. And it's the highest median rule that elects the projects with the highest median rating. This brings a better representation of a group opinion that's in the approbation voting system. So we will experience this for the first time this year in September for our votes. Next. Our last challenge is making real a promise of our re-elected mayor during our campaign, 25% investment funds based on participative decision-making. It's not only PB anymore. More investment funds are going to be spent based on participation decision-making. Increasing citizen involvement in municipal governments and urban developments is quite challenging, but we are trying our best to make it real. My former chief of staff always says, do and think, instead of think slowly and maybe do. In Paris, PB started quite experimentally, shifting long reflections to immediate actions in a learning by doing perspective. And to my point of view, this is a key for success. Thank you very much.
네, 발표 잘 들었습니다. 파리의
Thank you very
사례를
much for your
들어봤습니다.
presentation. It was Paris example. 5% of the budget will be directly decided by citizens, and 5% participatory PB has been adopted in Paris, and one of the big cities out of all global other cities that the biggest portion of the budget is allocated to each inhabitant of the city, which was quite impressive, and we were able to see the challenges that Paris has to fight against. And looking at the different histories of PB of other cities, it was a good chance for us to share and to learn from them. Well, the cases of Paris and its future directions for PB. Thank you very much once again. And let's now move to the Spanish case, the Madrid of Spain. And through Decide Madrid, which is an online policy platform to receive opinions of the citizens, and citizens here can propose policies and legislation. I would like to now invite Technical Advisor Jose N. Becerra from Madrid City Council.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you to Seoul Metropolitan Government for inviting us to this forum to let us to talk about our experience in participatory budgeting.
Okay, then please begin your presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Next. I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to make a bit of context about participatory budgeting in Madrid and the digital platform that support it. Then I will give some figures about our experience in the years. At the end, we'll talk briefly about how we are going after these years of having 4 calls of participatory budgeting, how we are going to redesign Madrid participatory budget. Next. The City of Madrid is the citizen participation portal of Madrid City Council. Right now, there are around 70,000 people registered users on the platform. Well, the City of Madrid began its journey in 2015, so we have right now 6 years of experience in digital city participation. We are now concentrated in Madrid participation, but Consul, that is the platform, is the City of Madrid based on, is extended through many cities around the world, and not only in Spain, but also in South America and Europe. The strong part of the City of Madrid Consul is that the source code is freely available on GPA and the GPL 3.0 license, and it's based all in open source software like Postgres, Apache, Ruby on Rails that allows us to make a very fast development. This is the main screen of the City of Madrid, where are all the options that we can have as a citizen in our platform. We have debates where citizens debate among themselves and with the City Council. We have proposals where any citizen can submit ideas to the city, and if it reaches 1% of support of the people living in Madrid, this proposal is taken by the City Council and is executed. We have what we call processes. That is, the City Council asks for their opinion to citizens to elaborate their public policies. And we have participatory budgeting, where the City Council asks the citizens what to spend part of the budget on. Next, please. As I said before, first in 2015, the City of Madrid started, and we have the first collaborative legislation process, what we call processes. In 2016, we have our first participatory budgeting call. Okay, we invest 60 million of euros in this call. Then we have in 2017 the second participatory budgeting call, and what we call the voting. Okay, where we have several. We ask the citizen about two proposals that reach that 1% census. So there was we call a big voting because we have many people participating in this vote. We see later. In 2018, we had the third, the beginning of the fourth participatory budgeting call. Now in 2019, we have a change in the government of the City of Madrid Council, so we didn't have a call. And in 2020, we had the pandemic, so we started a lot of processes oriented to diminish the effect of the pandemic on the citizens of Madrid. And we started introducing innovative technological ways of participation, like using SIG or introducing this year machine learning. And in September, we are going to have our fifth participatory budgeting call. Next, please. Okay. These are the phases of a typical participatory budgeting call here in our platform. We have, first of all, project presentation where people can, we have a form where people can present their project with images locating on a map where they wanted to have the project execute, give documentation, etc. Then we have internal checking of the projects, just to check that they conform to our legislation and there is nothing strange or something like that. Then we have the citizen project support, where people can support projects so that we can, there are too many projects presented, we cannot deal with all of them, so we prioritize, people say what for the project, and so we choose the first number of them so that we can make them go to the next phase, that is internal project evaluation. And at the end, we have the final citizen voting. Next, please. We can find now here some figures. We have this year as well, we have 5,000, more than 5,000 projects presented in the first year, 3,000, 3,000, 4,000. We have at the beginning for 45,000 people presented, till more than 90,000 people presented in 2018. We can see also here the participation by years. Next, please. These are a summary of the figures presented in the slides. Is at the end we have more than 16,000 projects presented, more than like around the 8% of projects selected. Right now we are around 40% of projects finished, and we have devoted almost 400 million euros devoted. Okay, and more than 200,000 citizens have participated in different ways. Next, please. I'm going to talk in this last part of my presentation. After 4 participatory budgeting calls, we are going to redesign the way we are doing these calls. We have make analyze and we're going to make change and improve. As I said before, in September this year, we are going to have a new call with significant changes. Next, please. A new legal regulation has been approved in order to introduce all these changes to the call. We can find here our new legislation. Due to past experience, the budget that put at disposal this year will be 50 million euros for a 2 years call, because we had found out that at the end, due to the internal problems to cope with the projects, many projects delay to a long time to be run. So we decided to put this amount of this quantity, because it's what this we are really spending every year. The time for the evaluation process has been increased. The call has adapted to new legal norm about public administration procedures. And we are going to use new technologies in this call, a chatbot technology to help citizens in the projects, and machine learning system in order to analyze information. We are going also, as we have done before, we are going to have a physical presentation of projects and voting, as we have done on other years, where we put ballot box on the street so people can vote the project first. We will continue with inclusive methods like working with disabled people organization, just to allow that every people can participate in the project. So, thank you very much. Here you can find an email address or where you can write to us if you need to know something. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. 네, 마드리드시 참여 예산 사례에 대해서 살펴봤습니다.
He just shared Madrid's examples in PB, and technical advisor Vasera will join us once again for the panel discussion session, and that's a wrap for all presentations. And concerning the theme of each speaker, would like to have a profound discussion session now, and all attendants joining online, please upload your questions and comments freely. We can address your questions on a real-time basis, and also we'll give you some small gifts for that. And let's now begin our panel discussion session. Let me introduce our panelists. Our moderator is Professor So-Soon Chung from Konkuk University, and the session speaker, Director Lee Won-mok from SMG, is here with us, and Director Colin Berthaud from Paris is connected through online, and the technical advisor Jose Becerra is online too. And here with us we have Professor An Sung-min from Ulsan University and Director An Young-hoon from Hansei University. And now I would like to hand over the microphone to the moderator.
Professor So, the floor is yours. Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is So-Soon Chung, and I'm professor at Konkuk University. So, the topic of session 1 was overview and comparison of PBs, global and local cases. So, I would like to give you the logistics of the panel discussion so that it runs smoothly. We have two designated speakers. Professor An Sung-min and An Young-hoon will speak for 5 minutes. And once they present, the other participants will provide comments and inputs. So that will wrap one round of the panel discussion session. And depending on the questions that we received on YouTube and other questions, we will continue with the second round. Hello everyone, my name is An Sung-min from Ulsan University. Thank you very much for your presentations. And well, actually, Mr. Yi talked about Seoul, and Mr. Jose talked about Madrid, and I have two questions for each. So when it comes to Seoul, you talked about Seoul, and you actually gave us details about the features of Seoul's PB by Seoul letter, the abbreviation. And actually, Seoul is in fact a mega city, and in that sense, Seoul's PB is significant. But at the same time, it also contributes to the autonomous budgeting of the country, and at the same time, it can also serve as a model for other provinces to follow. You talked about suggestion, openness, and capacity. And I believe that Seoul has achieved much on those three fronts. Then what about democracy and youthfulness? I think that Seoul can do better in those two areas. So can you please tell me how far Seoul has come in those two aspects and what it will do going forward? Of course, you talked about what Seoul has been doing for a long time, and you talked about the representation when appointing the citizens in the PB committee. However, because of the pandemic, everything had to move online, and I'm sure that you have some lessons to share with us. First of all, well, now, does the online platform represent everyone? So in terms of representation, is everybody's voice represented? Because what I mean by that is that not all populations have easy access to the internet. So I would like to know what Seoul plans to do to close the digital gap between different populations. And secondly, this was from Madrid. You talked about the online platforms, the discussions and deliberations on the virtual platform. But, well, because of COVID-19, as I said, everything moved online and deliberation was not easy. So those were the feedbacks that we received here in Korea. So I would like to know more about the deliberation process, what plans you have to expand the virtual deliberation process, or do you plan to go hybrid going forward? And also about youthfulness, this is a question to Seoul as well. Well, PB in Seoul has contributed to engaging more young people in the public projects. However, of course, the role of PB is to discuss the pending agendas in Seoul to improve the lives of the Seoul citizens. So it has to really impact our everyday life. And do you think that PB in Seoul is successful in doing that? So, of course, you have proposed many agendas, but I would like to know whether those agendas are really effective to transforming the lives of the people in Seoul. And many times, well, the PB process is limited by the existing regulations and rules. So I'm sure that the city of Seoul also faced many barriers. So what we need to do is to remove all the silos and remove the red tape to make PB more effective. So I would like to know the experience of Seoul in removing the red tape as well, and your plans for the future. Next, about Madrid, you talked about PB in Madrid, and Decide Madrid is a platform that you provide, and you talked about the achievements of Madrid. So thank you very much for that. And Decide Madrid is expected to go beyond a mere platform. It can actually engage more people, and that was quite impressive. So I would like to learn more about Madrid's case, so I have a few questions. So as I said with the case of Seoul, my first question is about representation. So is everybody equally represented? So all the different generations, do they have equal representation, or is it different by generation? And my second question is, as of today, how many, well, from what I got, you said that 470,000 people are now registered to the platform, but the people who actually are engaged in PB is less than 100,000. So by that, I see a gap between the number of people registered on Decide Madrid platform and those who actually participate in the PB process. So what causes such gap? And from your presentation, it looked like you have a public forum that engages more people for discussion. So can you please elaborate on that? And number three, well, how do you assess the achievement of the platform? So because you said that you have selected over 1,200 projects, but you actually executed about 400. So there are many other projects that haven't been completed. So I would like to know why they haven't been completed. And also, well, you talked about easing inequality as well as including more people. And well, actually, those are some of the common achievements of PB. And I would like to know if that was the case with Madrid as well. And my last question is, you want to plan for the future for PB in Madrid, but then the budget has been cut, you said. So I would like to know the reason behind that.
Thank you very much, Professor An, for posing questions to Paris, Seoul, and Madrid. Sorry. And now, Professor An, would you please address your comments? Yes, greetings to you all. I am from Hansei University, Public Policy Future Research Institute. First of all, let me thank you, all related people from SMG, for giving me this opportunity to be part of this discussion session. Well, let me now address my comment and questions in English. To Colleen first.
For your very informative and excellent presentation. Just I raise some, before raising question to you, I just mentioned several factors not compare, but a little bit and compare with the Seoul case, because our Director General, Mr. Lee, presented Seoul cases in participatory budget system. Seoul Metropolitan City has the population is almost 10 million people compared to 230, yes, 2,300,000 people in Paris. But I think it's the presented program for the participating budget. The number is almost the same, I think, more than 2,500 cases. But in Seoul, the adopted case will be the number of, I think it's 800, more than 800, 850. So, and also in Korea, our participatory budget system is become mandatory for all the local government since 2011. So just one question here. In France or in Paris city governments, it's the obligation, or what will be the measure is mandatory, or is this not mandatory? The first question. The second, from the presentation of our Director General, Lee, the Seoul has the, I estimate almost the budget estimated is the $0.8 billion in Seoul, using for the participatory budget. So in Seoul case, for example, we have 25 autonomous districts compared to Paris. Paris has just arrondissement, only 16, but it's not the whole autonomous. But in Korea, under Seoul Metropolitan Government, we have 25 autonomous districts. All districts have the very different participatory budget system. But when Seoul Metropolitan Government adopt some participatory budget system devoted for the disabled, it's a kind of obligation. Also, I heard from your presentation the Paris participatory budget, the 30% goes to the working class population in your arrondissement, okay? So what will be the process of select the 30% working class to be benefit from the participatory budget system? There will be second question, okay? And the third question will be, goes to you and also our Director General, Mr. Lee, because in both city government has adopted a almost 800 or 600, more than 600 program selected, adopted, and there will be more than maybe 1,500 cases rejected or delayed. So is there any complementary measure for the delayed or rejected programs? Because many citizens participate in that decided participatory budget, but they'll be disappointed when their project not adopted in their case. So what will be the next step or the complementary measures? That's my question. Thank you for your presentation.
네, 감사합니다. 안녕 소장님. 네, 우리 서울시와
Thank you very much, Director An, for posing questions to Seoul and Paris. Well, actually, Director An has studied in France, and he is capable enough of posing questions in French, but he used English instead. Well, let me make my comments on Seoul's case. But during the keynote lecture by Professor Yves Kevin, he has mentioned that the underprivileged class should be served through participatory budgeting procedure. And also, the PB has been operating and should be operating in that direction to better serve the underprivileged class. Well, one of the characteristics of PB in Paris is that it is more inclusive and it is more distribute-centered on the underprivileged and the low-income level people. That's what I have learned from the presentation of Paris City. Well, do you have any important background or motives that you have centered around the underprivileged and the vulnerable classes? Is there any particular reason that you operate your PB in that sense? And do you have any outcomes in relation with that intention to share with us? And I have other questions to Director Lee, but let me ask just one question. One of the characteristics of Paris PB was that it is more inclusive and it is more distributory for the underprivileged. So does that is it included in Seoul's PB? I know that some part of those characteristics are included, but as for Paris case, 30% of the total PB is allocated to the vulnerable classes, but proportionately, Seoul City's PB is not enough. So do you have any future plan to be more inclusive and to improve that factor? Please share your plan so that we can have a comparative picture of Seoul and Paris, and so that we can progress together. Well, we have listened to 3 panelists. So now I would like to ask our speakers, Director Lee and Director Coulimberto and Technical Advisor Jose Becerra, to address these questions and comments in the order that I called. So please, Mr. Lee. Thank you very much for your informative presentation, our two speakers, and thank you for insightful questions and comments from our panelists. So there are numerous questions, so let me be simple in addressing those. First, Professor An has asked 4 questions. Representativeness of PB. One of the questions was about that. And in particular, since COVID outbreak, digital transformation has been highlighted more sincerely than ever. And depending on the age and the class, there are limitations of participation in the budgeting process. That's something that we have been concerned about too. However, in case of Seoul, in terms of infrastructure and the digital literacy of citizens, we are quite in favored situation. And if you look at the results of the survey, well, some members of PB committee and the participation rate of citizens show that we have quite a representativeness, and we still have a significant participation rate of in 50s or 60s. So even amidst the technological transition into digital era, we are securing some representativeness of PB. But as you have mentioned, Professor An, yes, we could be exposed to the further risks of digital gap depending on classes. We will be working on enhancing institutions and systems. And the second question was about on and offline participation. It's true that the PB encompasses on and offline participation of citizens, and we need a platform to cover all those opinions. But yes, it is true that practically it's complicated, and we are aware of that difficulty. Well, PB is not a simple play of numbers of participated citizens. So that's why, well, actually, I can't give you a cookie cutter answer for now, but we are now receiving proposed projects from all sectors, and we are running separately deliberation procedures, and there is a great number of proposed projects, and concentration and selection are not easy. So that's why we would say that it is practically difficult to enhance the quality of each selected project to a certain level. Well, actually, the youth could be a key theme sector, or the housing policy could be extensively discussed like this. So we could be opting for some hot potato subjects or themes of the city in those days. And what kind of roles PB could play in engaging more and more participation? Well, PB, my personal opinion, is part of a total budgeting procedure of SMG, Seoul Metropolitan Government, well, which has 46 trillion Korean won for this year. And we can't make all those SMG's budget into PB. So basically, PB should be based in districts and smaller administrative jurisdictions, so that we can be rooted in daily lives of citizens. And the key factors or key themes could be further developed in relation with the total budgeting of Seoul once PB is more firmly established. And the fourth question was about receiving proposals of citizens and some difficulties to receive all the proposals from the citizen state because of legal limitations. It's true that we can't be fully free of rules and regulations, but PB could be a motivation to make changes little by little in rules and regulations that limit the scope of works of PB. And as for the comment made by Director An, yes, it's true that we receive a massive projects proposed. For this year, for example, we have 45 projects proposed, and then we will discuss those projects with the budget of 32 billion Korean won. So from the administrative perspective and contents perspective, there are overlapping projects. So we need to sort out those projects through the deliberation. And lastly, for the inclusive PB and the support from the city council level, well, that could be a question of operation. Out of total budget of Seoul City, the budget for well-being is over 10 trillion Korean won, which means that 10 times of the total budget of participatory budgeting, which means that, well, depending on well-being or environment, we can increase the efficacy of budget operation with concretized projects. So we will be working on that from next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. Now I would like to ask Madame Colleen for the answer.
Yes, there were 4 questions. The first one was about mandatory or not mandatory to implement a PB in France. It's not mandatory. Actually, it's not really possible in the law in France because the constitutions of France says that the budget of each city has to be decided by the city council. So in our communication, we have to write and repeat that at the end, the budget of the projects will be voted by the council. Besides, as in Seoul, we make the choice that every Parisian can vote. But we don't have a list of every Parisian, so it's not really everybody can vote, whereas in the law, only people who are in the electoral list can vote. So no, it's not mandatory, and it's not really legal, but it's accepted by everyone that city can, but it's not very written in the law and in the constitution. The second question on the 4th one, so I will have a group answer, is about working class vote. In Paris, districts don't have a lot of money. So the money came from the whole city. So in order to obligate districts to have money for working class projects, we transfer them more money according to the population in poor neighborhood. And we said, okay, we give you more money, but we have to make sure that at least 30% of this money will go to a project for these neighborhoods. Why we did that? For 2 reasons, I think. The first one was that before we implemented PB in Paris, the main criticism was that it will be a toy for insiders. And I think that it was an answer for these criticisms to make sure that it will not be just a toy, but it will be a real project which will benefit for everyone. The second reason is that besides PB, all Parisian politics aims at making life for these people who live in poor neighborhoods better. And it was normal that PB, which was one of the big new policy, make sure that it's benefits for these neighborhoods. The last question was about ejected projects. Actually, there is a lot of ejected projects, many of them because they are not feasible. So we explain people, we can't do that because it's not a city's competence, because it's not possible technically. And when it's possible, but not in PB process, we explain and we say it's not PB because it's not only investment, there's a lot of functionment, but you can do that in this case. And for each ejected project, we explain to people why we don't put it in the vote. I hope I answer everything.
고맙습니다.
Yes, thank you very much for that. So, Madame Berthaud has been involved in Paris PB process for a very long time. So thank you very much for your expertise. Now moving on to Mr. Becerra. Can you please give the answers?
Yes, of course. Thank you for these insightful questions. I have a lot of questions to answer. I hope now you can hear me correctly because I have certain problem with my microphone before. Okay. About I will answer. I will try to answer the questions in groups because, for example, you asked about the 40% so that we have execute of the participatory budget in projects only, and why we are reducing the budget for the call in September. Both are related, you know. Our public law administration in contracts is very strict, so many times the projects delay a lot in executing because we must fulfill a lot of requisites, you know, to take them, to run them. So we have right now only 40% of project finished, but the rest of them are running and they will be finishing a certain time. So at the end, in our experience, and for analysis we did after 4 calls, is that it's better to have a amount of money more realistic to what we can fulfill in the period of the call, you know. So we at the end we more or less saw that if 50 million euros is more adequate for a call because we can run all the projects in the time of the call. So that's the reason we reduce the amount of money devoted to this call. About the representation of the different generations, yes, is as it happens in many places. We have in our web all the statistics, but the people that mainly participate is around 40, 50 years, you know, and we have a gap in older people and in young people. So we also, when a person, a citizen registered at our platform, we ask him or her, we ask for age, sex, and district. That's why we have this information. But to get a wider view of what people is in our platform, we conducted a study last year asking more demographic information to people so that we can see what people is represented in our platform and what people is not represented. So with both groups of information, sex, age, and district, and the demographic information within in this study, we are going to conduct a a project that to try to include all those people that is not represented our platform. So we are going to have to start working with older people in older residences where they live, related to the city council. And we are going to open a new area in the city of Madrid related to young people, you know, to change the way we address them with more using gamification and this kind of techniques so that we can attract them with a new language, not the more official language we can have in a public web, you know, from the administration, but more in a language more near to them so that we can get more young and people in participate, because they are the base of participation. You know, if they learn to participate from young ages, they will participate when they are older. So about the gap in registered from participating people, well, at the beginning of the project, there were a lot of people registering in the platform, and then the number of people registering has decreased. You know, we are trying to make all these people, or try to make all the people to participate in the different processes we have. And as I told about the big voting, you know, we have more than 200,000 people participating in that voting. So we have several ways of addressing those people that is registered, like sending a newsletter every time we open a process of a call, so that all the people in the platform is informed that what we are doing and try to make them to participate. Not all the people, you know, participate because it's a classical situation. So we are trying to make them participate, to address them with social networks and with projects like the one I talked before. So well, we try to include more people that so that the people that is registered in the platform is representative of the demographic situation of the city of Madrid. About the forum, well, okay, we have the base of our platform is the comments. You know, every process we start in our platform has the possibility to for people to comment about the process, what other people is saying, etc. So for us, it's very important, and we have introduced new machine learning technologies to cope with all this information that is unstructured comments of people, so that we can analyze what they are saying, what trends we can find, you know. So everything people can comment, and is for us is very important, more than the voting itself, you know, in the way that Paris is going to introduce the I like that or I prefer that. We think that comments are very important to know what the people really is thinking. So we are devoting a lot of time to this kind of information, and we are going to use machine learning technologies to cope with this, you know. About I don't know. I think I have answered all the question. I think. Well, at the end, we are always trying to innovate and learning from the experiences of others, like coming to this forum where, from the presentation from Paris and Seoul, I have gets a lot of interesting ideas we are going to use, you know. In that way, we have set up with other cities the participatory group. That is a group where we can a lot of cities meet and discuss about their experience, and we think that is important to share experience and to know what all cities other cities are doing. So well, we invite to, if you want to know more about the participatory group, well, to contact us, and in the other email address I put, because we think it's important to share experiences, not only trying to work themselves. At the end is the cities has different views and they have different approaches, and I think all are very important. Well, I think I have answered all the questions. Thank you very much again for inviting us.
네, 감사합니다.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Well, since you're an expert in technique, well, you're a technical advisor, I'm sure that you've contributed to the platform. And, well, be it Paris, Seoul, or Madrid, I also look forward to the different cities collaborating together and creating a coalition to promote PB even further. We have many people who have joined us online, so they have asked us many questions, but we are pressed for time. We only have 5 more minutes left. So about the 3 presenters, I would like to maybe ask one question each, very brief questions, and please make your answers brief. First, for Seoul. Well, Seoul's PB is quite active, but despite that achievement and success, it is hard for the citizens to get a grasp of what PB is doing. So it would be nicer if the PB process can be streamlined and made more effective. So that was the first question. Second, about Paris. There are many projects, and of course, voting the priority of the projects can be quite effective. But despite such benefits and advantages, well, if the residents are being too subjective, then that might not win the hearts of the larger population if it only hears the voice of a few people. So I would like to know whether there are any better ways to improve such process. And number 3, the question was about Decide Madrid, the platform. And it seems like it is the key system to Madrid's PB. And as Professor Caban mentioned during his keynote speech, relying too much on digital platform may not be the right solution. So maybe we have to de-digitalize. So do you have any concerns of going too digital with the platform? So can I hear the answers starting from Director Lee? Please make your answers brief within 2 minutes.
Well, it's such a good question and such a concern that we have internally. More practical engagement of citizens should be highlighted, and also at the same time we need to enhance the efficacy of the system. That's the essence of the question, I assume. Well, it also relates to the question asked to Madrid case. Currently, what we could do is to combine dexterously on and offline, so to minimize the cost of operation and maximize the engagement of citizens. Well, the young generation who is quite savvy at digital technologies shows high participation rate in m-voting, and we will work on more on that direction for the young generation. But as for the elderly, who is more accustomed to the analog culture, then we will approach that class to cater their convenience. And as for the efficacy of PB, well, it may be an overlapping answer, but overall, SMG has an experience of 10 years. We have accumulated outcomes, and we also have met challenges out of the process. So we would like to enhance the quality of citizens' participation and also the efficacy of budget allocation and other project selection. Well, I would like Seoul Metropolitan Government to allocate some of its rights to 25 districts and also to civil societies and civil associations so that we can enhance the accountability of each actor. And Madame Berthaud?
Yes. Is the vote subjective? Of course, I think that vote is subjective, but elected people votes are subjective too, I think. And the more voters we have, the more representative it will be. That's why we put ballot boxes everywhere in the cities in order to have the more voters possible and to have a result which is representative of what Parisians think. Was it the question?
네, 감사합니다.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Now moving on to Mr. Jose.
Yes, well, I think that reality is digital, you know, and we have seen in the COVID outbreak that we have a very good opportunity for our platform during the COVID outbreak because we launch a lot of processes trying to help the citizens with using participatory processes. So although we do not abandon the physical participation, you know, but we think digital is the future, and we center on the digital part of participation, you know. But we think for us is our main basis using the City Madrid, our platform, and we think in the future it is the future, you know. We think it allows people to participate at any time, from anywhere, individually, without having to be mediated by any association or even by us, you know. So we think it's too important. But we are centered on those group of people that have problems with digital access, you know. But they are the groups of the main groups of citizens have digital access, and they know how to work with it, you know. We are working on the usability of the platform because we know is a very important part, so that we are going to introduce a specific part of the platform related to youth, you know, so to change the way we talk to them, the language, etc. But within digital participation is the way to go.
Thank you very much. Well, for the panel discussion session of the session 1, we have listened to the different presentations from Seoul, Paris, and Madrid, and I learned a lot from those. Paris has been working on the balance between on and offline and also participatory budgeting to be more inclusive. And Madrid has accelerated the use of digital platform to secure more participation of citizens. Well, and also as for Seoul's case, I personally would like to see Seoul Metropolitan Government could have on and offline combined system for Seoul citizens. But it is true that PB is complicated and PB is quite diverse in terms of proposed projects. So to cater different needs of citizens will be the key. I wish that these three cities could continue their cooperation so to be an example to other cities and districts in the world. Well, three speakers and two panelists and our online participants and citizens especially. I would like to thank you all for your interest and efforts. Thank you. Thank you very much. That rounds out all presentations and panel discussion of session number 1. There were lots of good comments and insights. I would like to ask our online participants to give us a big hand. We can't hear you, but we can feel your vibes and passion to this subject. And Professor Soo Sun-chang, thank you very much for successfully moderating the discussion session, and all our panelists, thank you for your insightful comments. And that's a wrap for the first session of Seoul Forum on Citizen Participation. Thank you very much once again for your interest and for your active participation. Thanks to your interest, we would be able to make another leap for the coming 10 years. We have Day 2 tomorrow, which starts at 10:30 with different sessions. Please keep your interest in tomorrow. I will see you next tomorrow. Thank you.